I sit down at home decided to watch some TV, listening to the news by Gordon Mosley. I listening to the things that he say he tracking tonight, paying close attention to make sure I hear it right. But when I hear the things that he mentioned on the news, I had to declare them kind of thing got me confused. I hear some things where the ERC noticing, and it convinced me that people ain't learning nothing. We hear so many times about them big name calling, and they say ERC pretend that they didn't learn nothing. But once you're black and you just decide to say a word or two, bet your life on that they say ERC coming for you. Listen to the things you just hear on social media. Only one set of people allowed to talk in one Guyana. I still say nothing, black people in learning. But this is my concern. I hope one day black people will learn. ERC that I would like to know if any of its members happens to be black people. And if that is the case, I want them to answer this call. Tell me how come none of them ain't got no voice at all. You're showing signs of weakness and you're afraid to be fair, and we see the same thing keep happening year after year. And the day will come when all this nonsense will stop. That will be the day when black people decide to wake up. Not so long ago, something terrible happened. This young Indian man want to kill out all black people by poison. But if his shoes was on the other foot, would have been a big job. But up to this day, this ERC can do nothing as yet. How come it's only black people committing cybercrime? When pretty on social media fussing people all the time, I still saying black people in learning. But one day will come when the entire table will turn. Excuse me, see they fail to condemn, because these people think that the law is only for them. And anybody else who decide to file a complaint, they go call you a racist and don't want to hear nothing. Plenty complaint from time to time has been brought to their attention, but because of this one-sided cybercrime is why they don't show any concern. There's only one set of people that they really care about, and black people must take the abuse and shut them out. Kidaki Amsterdam went to court just recently for an issue that was highlighted by the same ERC. And with breakneck speed, the police decide to jump on his case without a search warrant. They went and search up the man's place. Let us all agree that black people under attack. Different laws for you and me just because we black. I still singing. Black people in learning. To all my black friends, we must put a stop to all this nonsense. Many in the cybercrime laws to keep people silent, just to make sure nobody criticize this government. And while that is a very clear case of dictatorship, it is no surprise that the ERC ignoring it. Why only the chosen few is allowed to have things their way, when people like me and you must have nothing to say? And when ministers in the government start to launch their attack, you never hear this ERC come out and talk about that. They send a policeman all the way to New York. This fella went up there to serve a Tulsaman and Rick Forward. Under this thing, this government decide to fabricate a case, but like they forget the warning they get from Black T-shirt jails. The vice president is prepared to use as a low life. Because of this kind of abuse, he don't have a wife. I still singing. Black people in learning. Just the other day, I hope your man see help is on the way.
All right, so today we are here at Club Twilight up in Buxton, and we are here to talk about all that's going on up here. Trust me, if you are on the East Coast, you're in Buxton, you're in Tongue, you're looking for a place to get away to, this is the place. The Cutters, mwah. Listen, I'll be having some just now again. We'll talk about that. And then, of course, the ambience is beautiful, fully air conditioned. The decor is on point. The music's on point. Everything's on point. It's just me. I need some work. But everything else that belongs to this club here is on point. So if you want to find a nice little place where you can just drive out of town and have some drinks, have some food, you can call, you can order your stuff and just take it. You don't have to stay. Or if you want to stay here, that's what's up. And of course, they have special events for Valentine's. You can rent a hall. You can rent a hall, honey. You can rent a hall for weddings, for birthday parties, to have a bash. I hope he edits that out. But you know, whatever it is, this is definitely the place to be. So it's on Sideline Dam. You definitely want to ensure that you check this place out. But it's on your to-do list. All right, on your to-do list. This is definitely the place to check out, you know, a really cool, chill spot here in Buxton. I like this. Buxton needed this. We needed this. I needed this. You definitely needed too. Thank you. All right, so you might be wondering where we are, still in Buxton at Club Twilight. That's where we are. So Club Twilight also has like an Airbnb as well. So you could come, drink, drunk, and come in the back here and lie down. Look at that. Look at that. Perfection. And the people come in the room and so on. The bed sheet matching, the blind matching, the carpet matching, the this matching, the that. We know what we things in Buxton don't play with, we? So definitely, if you want to come and you may be having a wedding or whatever, and you just want to overnight and just have a good time because you're gonna be drunk, we got too much road accidents. So you definitely want to come drink, have a good time. They have several rooms that you can rent. You have your toilet, you have your bath, you have your sink, you have your dining area, you have the bed. This is nice. I like it. Anyways, to my friends and my family, if you're looking for me, I'll be overnighting. Also, for those persons who are traveling in from overseas, you want a nice, cozy place out of town, then Club Twilight, call them up, look them up on social media. They have their own Facebook page, and ensure that you come up the side and have a good time. Have a good time. Have a good time. Sorry. I'm sorry. That's it.
Don't be a victim. Beat the heat with EC Crystals. Party ice in large and small quantities. Call 682-7981 or visit us at Club Twilight, Sideline Dam, Buxton North. EC Crystals, pure party ice. You can get meat anywhere, but for the best cuts of chicken, beef, pork, mutton, and lots more, check out T&W Harris Butcher Shop located in the East Rheinveld Market Meat Section. Call us on 609-7168, 641-4494. Ask for Rastaman. T&W Harris Butcher Shop for the best in fresh cut meats and lots more. Planning a party? Worry no more. We have all the supplies you need. At EC Party Rentals, we have folding chairs, folding tables, square tables, round tables, long tables, short tables, big tables. We have chairs, red chairs, gold chairs, white chairs, crystal chairs, chairs of all type, throne chairs. What you want, we have. Food warmers, coolers, ice, beverages. At EC Party Rentals, we have what you need to have a good time. You plan the party, we do the work. Call us 622-5933. EC Party Rentals. Let's keep your party going. Are you hosting an event? Do you need ice, party ice in large or small quantities? Then call us at 622-5933 for the best party ice available. $1,000 per bag. We do delivery. EC Crystals, Sideline Dam, Buxton North. Call to have your orders filled today. Are you looking for tents to rent? Well, look no further. At EC Party Rentals, Sideline Dam, Buxton North, we have tents in all sizes and colors. All sizes of tents we have. Small tents, big tents, medium tents, extra large tents. Call us on 622-5933. We have what you need. EC Party Rentals. Big on tents. Yes, Oldies fans, Club Twilight and Blue Ribbon present Thursday Night Oldies at Club Twilight, Sideline and Buxton North, with Blue Ribbon the boss and the Club Twilight family. Yes, come on out. Let's go way back to the past. Come on down.
Of water. And if anybody were to doubt it, in 1948, it was more blatant when Hendrik Verwoerd instituted the apartheid regime in South Africa. But yet there is a sense in which the God that we worship never sleeps. The colonial enterprise ran its course, And the European tribes, the Europeans never called themselves tribes, they called them nations, were engaged in a war. First in 1918, the European tribes fought. And they had something called the League of Nations, which died. Then they fought again in 1945. And what is unique about the European nations is that when they are engaged in tribal wars, they call them world wars. So there was another war between 1945, 1939 and 1945. And after that, a new kid on the United States of America took the lead in saying that colonialism was something that was undesirable. But at that time, Africans were never quiet. Those who had been taken out had already started agitating. Many of us here will remember Marcus Garvey, of whom Bob Marley says, Garvey was a buffalo soldier in the heart of America. And many of us will remember W.E.B. Du Bois. Many of us will remember that they started agitating that Africans must regain their dignity and their independence. And indeed, in 1847, in Liberia, a small group of Africans were brought back in Monrovia, and Liberia became the first independent black nation in the continent of Africa. So soon thereafter in Sierra Leone, they also created yet another colony. But Africa was colonized, except Ethiopia, which they tried to take in 1938 and exiled Professor Dr. Haile Selassie. And
Hey, morning, are you morning? Y'all don't think I've interrupted the program I'm not going to change it. Good morning. I hope you are hearing me clearly. I hope you can hear me clearly. I just dropped in to say good morning. And do not think I've made a mistake. It's deliberate. This is a masterpiece from PLO Lubumba. And in all of our politics and so on, education is important. And so let us continue to educate ourselves. People without knowledge of their history are bound to make the same mistake their ancestors made. And I don't want us to be making those mistakes. Right, so blessings and good morning. You are likely to see me back before the program ends. You might get some call-in time. It is 12 minutes to the 8 o'clock hour. We have another 20 minutes or so of Lubumba. And so, yes, we are going to talk. Enjoy. Continue to enjoy.
And unfortunately, they were defeated, as you remember, in the Battle of Adowa. Africa can defeat European tribes. This history is necessary that we are able to appreciate the freedom that we gained. So that Garvey came, W.E.B. Du Bois came, but there was another crop after the 1940s who had the advantage of European education. And there were people in Europe also who are beginning to recognize that indeed equality was necessary. And this was not anything new. In 1776 in the United States of America, the American state sitting in Philadelphia in the United States of America declared unto themselves that all men are born equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. A few years later in France, after the revolution, they also recognized that we were to be equal, so that the colonized nations which had now taken Africans thought that they were safe. They had taken Leopold Sédar Senghor from Senegal to Paris, and they thought that they were creating a little Frenchman. Little did they know that they were creating somebody who would want to overthrow them. They took Félix Houphouët-Boigny from Côte d'Ivoire, and they thought that they were creating somebody who would be subservient to them. They took Ahmed Sekou Touré and Modibo Keita, and they thought they were safe. Little did they know that they were creating the future leaders and agitators against French colonization. And he did not stop there. The Portuguese also took Agostinho Neto and Amilcar Cabral and Eduardo Mondlane to Lisbon. Little did they know that those individuals would be the catalyst that would be necessary in the process of decolonization. The British also had their fair share. They took others. They took Mwalimu Kambarage Nyerere, Hastings Kamuzu Banda, Kenneth David Kaunda, and many others to the United Kingdom, Jomo Kenyatta, that those would be the individuals who sometimes later, and in Ghana, of course, they took the Osagyefo, Kwame Nkrumah, and in Nigeria, they took Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, and Sir Ahmadu Bello, the Sultan of Sokoto. There is a sense, therefore, in which these individuals started recognizing that having been enslaved, having been colonized, we now had to liberate ourselves. And the agitation started. And Kwame Nkrumah and his Ghana acquired independence in 1957. And I still can hear Kwame Nkrumah through the vicissitudes of time saying in Accra, Ghana, that Ghana is free and will never be colonized again. But the freedom of Ghana means nothing if the rest of Africa is not free. I can hear Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere saying that he's prepared to delay the independence of Tanganyika so that Tanganyika, Kenya, Uganda would become independent at one time. Mwalimu could see the future with the exactitude of a Jewish prophet. Jomo Kenyatta and Obote could not. And therefore, we gained independence as separate states, and the story will be told shortly. So what do we see? The agitation, the demand by the people that we must be decolonized. And why is it that we were asking that we must be decolonized? Why is it that we were demanding that we must regain our independence? Because throughout the ages, it was always the divine plan that men must be masters of their destiny. And when we gained our independence, the leaders of the day were eloquent as they were clear that the reason why we were asking to be independent is because we wanted to take charge of our affairs. We wanted to be the governors. We wanted to have our young men and women acquire education. We wanted to control the production of our food through agriculture. We wanted to build our infrastructure. We wanted to improve the quality of the lives of our people by improving their health. We wanted to eliminate poverty. We were clear on what we wanted, and this message was as clear in West Africa as it was clear in East Africa, as it was clear in Central Africa, as it was clear in Northern Africa. So that if you listen to Kwame Nkrumah, it's as if you'd listen to Agostinho Neto. And if you listen to Neto, it's as if you'd listen to Samora Moses Machel. And if you listen to Ahmed Ben Bella in the Maghreb, it's as if you'd listen to Patrice Emery Lumumba. There is a sense in which there was unanimity that this was the only way, and we attained independence. And I remember so very vividly in 1957 in Casablanca, Morocco, was it in 1960, when the then 8 independent African countries met on the Osagie for Kwame Nkrumah, was clear that we must ensure that everybody else regains their independence, and that we must remember that the colonial master is not asleep, and that if we don't unite, he'll come under other guises through the neo-colonial project. but they listened to Kwame Nkrumah not. And even before they assembled in 1963, in the month of May in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, no sooner had countries started attaining independence that the neo-colonial project started taking root. And in 1960, the first coup d'etat and assassination took place in Togo when Sylvanus Olympio was eliminated. 1 year later, Patrice Emery Lumumba was eliminated. So that in 1963, in the month of May, when 32 heads of states and government assembled in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, there were several speeches, but 3 speeches stand out. Kwame Nkrumah's speech, Mwalimu Kambarage Nyerere's speech, and Emperor Haile Selassie's speech. Haile Selassie was the host, and in own inimitable style, he reminded the congregation who are present in Africa Hall in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, that was a momentous occasion, and that the long-term health of Africa not only required but demanded that Africa must pull in the same direction, Haile Selassie said. And Mwalimu took the baton from Haile Selassie and repeated the same words, celebrating the fact that we were independent and we had the opportunity of determining in our affairs. But the greatest of the speeches was that of the Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah. Kwame Nkrumah had a sense of urgency which everybody else did not have. He said, not in so many words, but in effect, that if we want to immunize ourselves from the diabolical machinations of the erstwhile colonial master, now turned neo-colonizer, we have to move here as one Africa, with the United States of Africa, with one army, with one currency, with one central bank, and with one nation. But they listened to him not. They had started getting used to the trappings of power. So what they came out with on that day in the month of May 1963 was a weak organization of African unity, the OAU, which many commentators were quick to describe in many ways and many times as the toothless bulldog. It was never a dog. It did not have teeth, but the effect of it is that it did not do very much. Some say it was a talking shop. Mzee Warioba, who was then active in political life and in other sectors, will attest to that. Yet later, we were to create another body, the African Union, and we'll have something to say about that. So we come out of Addis Ababa, Ethiopia in 1963, clear as to what we want to do. The African politician begins to emerge. We have them in different parts, but they begin to show characters that are totally inimical to our expectations. You of the Swahili say, maskini akipata matako huliambwata. Maskini walipata matako zililiambwata. They started getting used to the trappings of power. And we started having countries which we thought would liberate us. And I'm talking about the hygiene of the politics. It started disappearing. Many of these individuals now thought that they were demigods, suffering from what I call the Messiah complex, thinking that they had been brought to Africa to liberate her, and that they suffered from 2 major diseases. One of them is the martyr syndrome, and the other one is the Messiah complex. They think that their countries owed them. Africa started producing leaders that one cannot recognize. How many of you will forget Jean Bedel Bokassa of Central African Republic, that man who murdered little children in the streets because they did not buy a uniform from his wife? That's Jean Bedel Bokassa. How many of you will forget Mobutu Sese Seko Kumbendu Wanzambanga, who changed his country's name and presided over a kleptocratic regime? The Democratic Republic of Congo is the richest resource country on earth. Conservatively, it is said that under her belly, she has minerals, which is equivalent to 34.1 trillion United States dollars. And yet today, it is one of the poorest nations on earth. It is the only nation on earth which on the day of the election has its president saying, we know we ought to have elections, but we have no money to hold elections. When you see a country which has as its official name the Democratic Republic of Congo, know that there is no democracy. In fact, I dare say that any country, two countries that I know insisting on having as a part of the official name the Democratic Republic of something are never democratic. The other one is Korea, the People's Democratic Republic of Korea. It's as if when you can't graduate to be a doctor, you go to the church and you ask to be baptized as Dr. Mwadime. But that is not the point. The point is that who can forget Mobutu Sese Seko? Who can forget Idi Amin of Uganda? Who can forget Mengistu Haile Mariam of Ethiopia? And one can go on because hygiene had started disappearing from African politics. Our agriculture was beginning to suffer. European musicians who had a little sense of guilt came to perform in Africa. Bob Geldof, to free the Ethiopians out of hunger. There was no hygiene in our politics. We could not run our education systems. Our young men and women were going to India because the budgets meant for education were consumed by individuals whom we had entrusted with the task of presiding over it. Our health sectors were beginning to collapse. And as I've said before, the political leadership did not have any faith in those institutions. Typically, the typical African politician, perhaps not in Tanzania today, if they were sick, they had a cold, they would not go to Muhimbili, they would go to London. If they were Kenyan, they would not go to Kenyatta Hospital, they would run to the United Kingdom. Tragedy, no hygiene in our politics because Africans had started engaging in theft. In fact, I used to say that African politicians were thieves. Then I went to Uganda and I was told that they are not thieves, they are looters. And when I went to Liberia last week, I was told they are not looters. I was told they are looters on an industrial scale. That is the logical metamorphosis of the African politician whose appetite for public wealth is completely insatiable. Hygiene was disappearing from African politics. And we could see the effect of the disappearance of hygiene in African politics. But there was always the erstwhile colonial master to assist. Coup d'etats started visiting Africa. Modibo Keita in Mali was consumed. Nnamdi Azikiwe in Nigeria was consumed. The Osagie for Kwame Nkrumah was consumed. Apollo Milton Obote was consumed. Amilcar Cabral in Guinea-Bissau was consumed. Patrice Emery Lumumba was consumed. coups were so frequent in Africa that Afro-pessimists were now hard to say that coups were as frequent as breakfast. But even breakfast was not frequent on African tables. We could not feed ourselves because there was no hygiene in African politics. Your typical African politicians took the view that they had a divine mission to preside over their countries. They arrogated to themselves the monopoly of wisdom. If you listen to some of them, and I listen to the radio announcements announcing the activities of one leader of an African country, Habyarimana Juvenal, it would take 3 minutes to say the things that he had done. To say the things that he had done. He was the leading farmer. He was the leading singer. He was the leading intellectual. He was the leading husband. And he was the leading everything. We had monsterized our leaders and they became immune from any kind of advice. Meanwhile, the African was suffering. The African woman who thought that upon attainment of political independence, she would now deliver in a decent hospital was still the victim of a village midwife. The African woman was suffering. The African woman who thought that they would now get water in a tap in their homes was still running 5 kilometers away to get water. Meanwhile, our monster leaders were laundering their clothes in France and in Paris. The African woman who thought that they would go to Kariakoo market here in Dar es Salaam or Owino market in Kampala, Uganda, and get all the goodies could not get them because meanwhile, the Minister for Agriculture had agreed that bad seed be supplied, and meanwhile, we were getting mangoes from Europe. The African woman who thought that they could have food on the table could not have food on the table. We had killed all our sugar industries that we may have sugar from Brazil and Mexico. And the African youth was no different. The African youth who thought that upon realization of independence, there would be occasion for them to get employment was now being humiliated at the embassies of the United States of America as he struggled to get the almighty green card. The young African who thought that liberation would bring something new was now struggling at the United Kingdom embassy, filling a document that is 50 pages long, being asked who their great-great-grandfathers were and what enterprise they were engaged in. And they could not stop there. They went to the Australian embassy and to the French embassy, and the treatment was the same. The African youth was being treated like a leper, like a pariah, like a subhuman being. And they were asking, for what purpose did we gain this thing called independence? And those who are not humiliated in Gambia, in Nigeria, in Niger, were crossing the Red Sea, swimming across the Mediterranean to go to Italy so that they may be enslaved anew. Meanwhile, the African leader was busy looting from their countries and buying mansions in Paris and in London and in Florida and driving private jets and helicopters and being addressed as their excellency and honorables instead of being addressed properly as horribles. Hygiene had disappeared in African politics. And what had started happening is that a new generation of African leaders who were dissatisfied started emerging. And one need only look at Africa in the 1980s when we begin to see the emergence of a new crop of leaders who are saying, this is not what we fought for. And I can remember so very vividly Ethiopia's Meles Zenawi in 1984 abandoning his medical studies and pursuing the Deg regime of Mengistu Haile Mariam. And he removed Haile Mariam. And there is a sense in which some hygiene has been reintroduced in Ethiopia. And I can remember here, God works in strange ways. Idi Amin made the mortal mistake of assuming that Tanzania and Mwalimu Julius Nyerere could be poked without consequence. He tried and he died regretting it. And this became, indeed, many of you will remember that this University of Dar es Salaam became the finishing school of latter-day revolutionaries. John Garang Dimabior was here. Yoweri Kaguta Museveni was here. If they were not students, they passed through here because this was the mecca of political revolutionaries. Eduardo Mondlane was here. Samora Machel passed through here, if only for a few hours. Nelson Holisa Mandela passed through here. Sam Nujoma came through here. This was the baptism ground. And the high priest was Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere. It was he who, in a manner of speaking, said, "With this water I thee baptize, that you may go out there and change your country." And Yoweri Kaguta Museveni went out into Uganda, and there is a sense, whether you like it or not, in which some hygiene was introduced in that country. There is a sense in which when Samora Moises Machel left this ground, he went to Mozambique, and there was a sense in which some hygiene was introduced in that country. There is a sense in which John Garang Dimabior left here, and some hygiene was beginning to be introduced in South Sudan. Right now, the story is a little different, but one can see that there was this new crop of leaders who recognized that indeed we had to do something about it. But ladies and gentlemen, what had happened over the years? Let us ask ourselves the fate of Africa. Why I say that there is a need for political hygiene. Africa today has 54 odd countries. And allow me to take you through a tour of Africa, if the moderator will be gracious enough to give me latitude. When you start from the Cape in South Africa, there is a great country which has given birth to great men. 1912, the first political party to be founded in Africa, the African National Congress of Sir Albert Lutuli. That party has given birth to the Mandelas, to the governing Mbekis, to the Reginald Oliver Tambo. There was great pain during the apartheid regime, but wisdom prevailed upon President de Klerk. And in 1994, we created what was called a rainbow nation. Mandela had his honeymoon. Then came Govan Mbeki, or Thabo Mbeki, the son of Govan Mbeki. Then came Jacob Zuma. I do not know where Jacob is taking South Africa. But from where I am, there is need for hygiene in South Africa, because that is a great country, and that is the anchor of Southern Africa. Nelson Mandela left a country that was called the Rainbow Nation. Today I'm beginning to hear them talk about the Zulu and the Xhosa and the Pedi. It is your own Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere who says, katika karne ya 21 mnasema tupande basi la makabila. Hiyo ni ujinga na upumbavu. Then there is another country, because there is need for hygiene in African politics. And when one talks about hygiene, one wants to see improved agriculture. One wants to see improved infrastructure. One wants to see improved education. One wants to see that the quality of the life of our women and children is improved. And you go to Namibia, there is a sense in which there is some hygiene there. If only the land question could be solved, that would be a country that is worthy, is moving in the right direction. One can begin to see that. Then you move to Angola, that unfortunate land of Agostino Neto, and you will remember Holden Roberto and Jonas Malheiro Savimbi. There is a sense in which that country was traumatized. I'm happy to note that President Dos Santos now says he's going to retire in 2018. My only concern is that he is sick now and he is seeking treatment in Madrid, Spain. Why don't they have a good hospital in Luanda, Angola? After you've been a president for 20 years, you are going to another civilization to treat you. There is a sense in which there was lack of hygiene. Then you go to Botswana, that great country, 1966, Botswana was a backwater country with nothing but courtesy of an individual who knew that hygiene depended and required that you improve the quality of people's lives. Sir Seretse Khama. And you know, when you have hygiene, even the politics becomes hygienic. And you realize that politics is not a life and death issue. That politics is a question of the competition of ideas. I've just read a Tanzanian newspaper here, which I thought was very insightful. Siasa ni kupambanisha hoja sio vija. And there is beauty in that. And Nyerere put it even better in much more eloquent Kiswahili than I can master. He said, kwanza tutambue ya kwamba ikulu ni mahali patakatifu. But I'm still talking about Botswana, Seretse Khama, Ketumile Masire, Festus Mohai, and Ian Khama. They now know that politics is not life and death. That is a country where there is hygiene. For those who are Afro-pessimists, who think that nothing is happening in Africa, something is happening. They are monsters, but they are also angels. But did they not exist like that even in the heavens? Lucifer alongside Michael and Gabriel? It would appear that as it is in heaven, so it is on earth. And if you go to Mozambique, you can also begin to see that there is a problem there, but there is an attempt at hygiene. You go to Zambia, that is another country, Kenneth David Kaunda. On the day that he left office, Kenneth David Kaunda had only $8,000 in his account. If you ask your typical African Tanzanian councillor today, before Magufuli came in, that was pocket change. After 24 years in power, $8,000 only. Those are people who love their country and sacrifice. There is a need for hygiene in Zambia. It is the only country in the world that I know where when an opposition leader blocks a motorcade, it does not become the offense of obstruction, it becomes the offense of treason. Unprecedented in the world. Hygiene is necessary in that country. And I look forward to hygiene being introduced. Then one comes to Tanzania. You know, Tanzania, when one talks about hygiene, one must start in the 1960s. One must remember the Arusha Declaration and the nobility of the intentions of Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere. And that is why many of you may not know, but at one time it was suggested that he be made a saint of the Catholic Church. And the reason was very simple. This was a man who had ideas. This was a man who had clarity of thought. This was a man who could see the future almost with the exactitude of a Jewish prophet. This was a man who had the humility, almost like the humility of the carpenter of Nazareth. This was a man who loved his country. He made mistakes, and when he made them, he realized and corrected them. That is his greatness. Is it not Saint Just who said that nobody can rule guiltlessly? This is a man who found 120 plus ethnic groups and welded them into one nation, so that Tanzanians speak with one voice. You know, if you look at Tanzania and you ask your typical Tanzanian, what was the ethnic extraction of President Kambarage Nyerere? They do not know and they do not care. If you ask Tanzanians what was the ethnic extraction of the second president of Tanzania, Mzee Ali Hassan Mwinyi, the Tanzanians do not know and they do not care because it does not matter. If you ask them what was the ethnic extraction of the third president of Tanzania, Benjamin William Mkapa, they do not know and it does not matter and they do not care. And if you ask Tanzania what was the ethnic extraction of your fourth president, Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete, they do not know and they do not care. And if you ask them what is the extraction of your fifth president, John Pombe Magufuli, they do not know and they do not care. They only know that he's a bulldozer. But you go to my country, Kenya, God save my country. God save my country. When you meet your typical Kenyan and you introduce yourself as John, they'll ask for the second name, not that they may know your full names, but that they may identify you with your ethnicity and pigeonhole you accordingly. When you go into that country, which is a great country in prospect, but which is being destroyed by negative ethnicity, you ask them who the first president of Kenya was, they'll tell you it was Jomo Kenyatta and he was Kikuyu, and we care. We want our Kikuyu president. And if you ask them who was the second president, they'll tell you it was Daniel Arap Moi of the Kalenjin extraction, and we cared because it was our turn to eat. And if you ask them who was the third president, they'll tell you it is Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, and he is a Kikuyu, and we want him to continue because we Kikuyus and we Kalenjin only feel safe when one of our own is in State House. And if you ask the opposition and you ask the leaders, from my own ethnic group, the Luo of Kenya, the Luo will tell you we have been marginalized for too long. The time has come that God must smile upon us and our son must be the president. And if you ask the Luhyas, they'll say the same thing. That is the tragedy of gigantic proportions. I'm submitting to us that the country called Kenya needs political hygiene. I'm submitting to us that the country called Kenya needs to come to Tanzania here on a benchmarking tour, and that the president of the Republic of Kenya and all our parliamentarians should sit at the State House and be lectured by John Pombe Magufuli on the finer points of governance. Of course, Mzee Warioba will be there, and other stalwarts will be there. Salim Ahmed Salim will be there. Great Tanzanians will be there. And Nyerere will remind us, katika karne ya 21 tupande basi ya makabila ujinga na upumbavu, because it can destroy a nation. There is need for political hygiene in Kenya. Right now in Nigeria, the Igbos want to secede, and they are being warned by the Yorubas and the Northerners. There is need for political hygiene. But let me also say one of the things that relates to hygiene. Aside from negative ethnicity, there is another thing that has killed Africa and taken away political hygiene, corruption. You know, it would appear that we of the Negroid blood relate very poorly with this thing called money. Money is a useful facility that enables you to do things with ease. But if you allow money to control you and you begin to adore money and you acquire appetite for money, then you are in trouble. And I want to submit to us that upon appointment into political office or upon ascending to the political office, it's as if you have won a lottery ticket to sudden wealth. In Africa, when you are appointed a minister, even the newspapers will say, if you are appointed to the Ministry of Finance, he's been appointed to the lucrative Ministry of Finance. If you are appointed to the Ministry of Agriculture or Mining, they say you've been appointed to the lucrative Ministry of Mining. But when you are appointed to the Minister of Culture, they say you've been appointed to the lean Ministry of Culture. In other words, there is a sense in which institutions in Africa appear to believe that he who gets into public office has a license to be a thief. And if you look at many African countries, many African leaders cannot account for their wealth. They have stripped their countries naked. You know, when I look at some of the great leaders of Africa, some who will not be remembered so very fondly by history, I regret. Robert Gabriel Mugabe of Zimbabwe. Nyinyi Waswahili mnasema wali wa kushiba huonekana kwenye sinia. In 1980s, when Mugabe took power, it was said of him that he had the largest number of degrees of any leader in the world, and he had degrees. It was said that he was a passionate revolutionary, and he was a passionate revolutionary. It was said that he had liberated Rhodesia, renamed Zimbabwe into a great country, and for the first 10 years he did a good job. Then something happened. Different commentators have different ways of saying. Some of them say that Sally died and he married Grace and it has never been the same again. I do not know. Some of them said that he became a prisoner of some of his comrades. I do not know. But the only thing that I know is that all the historical dividends he had accumulated have now been squandered. Why? They have been squandered because Robert Gabriel Mugabe now presides over a country where there is 90% unemployment. Robert Gabriel Mugabe now presides over a country which does not have currency but has a central bank. This is unprecedented in the history of modern civilization. I'm submitting to us that corruption has been at the very heart of the destruction of Africa. That is why we do not have roads. That is why we do not have good hostels. That is why we cannot feed ourselves in Kenya today. We and Ethiopia, we are importing maize from Mexico. In Liberia, they're importing chicken from Brazil. And in many countries, we cannot even feed ourselves. We do not make our own medicine. Medicine is made as generics in India. We do not even produce our own seeds to plant our fields. They are being made by Syngenta and Monsanto. We do not produce anything because of corruption. But there is a sense in which one can begin to see some hygiene. There is a sense when I arrived here in Dar es Salaam, I look at the newspapers and I see a white gentleman having flown into Tanzania in a private jet from the company called Acacia, goes into State House in Dar es Salaam and literally almost saying, Miaka, Sima, kosa sana, John Pombe Magufuli. Nakusikia mwanangu. Zipora. That there is an African leader that
Guyana like a rum shop where there is alcoholics and prostitutes.
Okay.
When you look at the operation and the behavior, they feel that everybody in Guyana, the men is alcoholics and the women and them is prostitutes. Karaki, I will stay there for now, and I'm locked on and listening.
Yeah, good morning, Kadaki, and good morning to our listeners. I have a problem and a fear of this government, given the current circumstances and political climate today, from 2020 to like the present time, in regards to professionals that we produce at the tertiary level because of corruption. You know, and I could cite one example, the gold. That's just one example. About today's topic, the PPP, right? To me, is practicing dictatorial democracy. This because for me, democracy means different thing to different people. And we're seeing it displaying out all over the world today. They're changing, they go into the parliament, change the law to benefit their family, their friends, and their crony. That is what it do. When they see that the law says you cannot do this, they go to parliament, change that law so that they could thief, well, let me say, they could thief bare face or in broad daylight. Because it's wrong. It's wrong what's going on. And we need some sanitizing of our coalition group also. There's a man that I wouldn't call no name, but you got to check the fellow out, you know. There's a fellow in our coalition. You just know them from their fruits, what they start to speak. Listen to them when they speak, and when they decide to come out to speak, what they're saying. You got to watch people like them. Most time they end up going on the other side. And I work with my gut feeling. That fella there, we got to watch him, you know. Don't put him in no place where you're going to be on top, strategy, secret, and so on. Leave him down below. And you're going to feel frustrated yourself and you're going to go away. You're going to see him. That's all I have to say this morning. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for that call. And again, it is 9 minutes to the 9 o'clock hour. We have another 9 minutes or so we can go with program. And so the lines remain open. You guys can make your calls.
Good morning, Kadaki, and everybody. Still hanging out, right? Anyway, with the speech that I listened to, it was a broad speech and it brought out lots of things. And I hope many persons listen to the different types of leaders from different countries, and to the leader that when he left the country as a president, the amount of money that he had in his bank account.
Okay, thank you.
That tells of a leader who wanted his people to enjoy the wealth of his country. Also, the same thing that happened there where this leader had his country and he had to go to Madrid, Spain to get health services. That happens also in Guyana. And when we come to talking about, they spoke about this country where the amount of the Congo, where the amount of mineral wealth that is under the belly of the Congo. And that is what is being said, and it is being explored now, that the West South America is a part of Africa, and Guyana is one such country with a lot of mineral wealth within its geography makeup. So I will always hold on that we are a part of Africa. I sent some pictures out, and the next place we are going to is a place, some bridge where they used to throw the slaves off when they brought them here from slavery. There's a bridge, I think it names. I'm going to be sending you those pictures next week. Bye for now.
Hi, hello, good morning. How are you? Morning, neighbor, morning. Neighbor, morning, are you morning? Morning, are you morning, neighbor, morning? Good morning to you. Welcome to another program of Guyanese Morning Time. I am your host, Kiraki Amsterdam. It's 7 hours 34 on the 17th day of June in the year 2025. Yes, it's the 17th day of June in the year 2025. We'll be smack dab in the middle there. Middle of the month, middle of the year. Yeah, we're doing good. 26 minutes to the 8 o'clock hour. Lots of things to talk about as usual. Lots of things to talk about as usual. But what y'all want us to talk about? How was it yesterday? How was it last night? How are you feeling this morning? What were you able to achieve yesterday? What gives you hope that Guyana is going to become a better place after the next election? Don't worry, tell me that the president said, don't tell me the vice president said, don't tell me the attorney general said, don't tell me anybody in the PPP said. Tell me about the other signs and symbols you're seeing. Right? Attendance at class seems to be low this morning. I wonder why. Anyhow, unless some people see my good-looking face, they don't come on, There's a trouble with them. Anyways, I want you to share with me if you have any indicators of Ghana being a better place after the September 1st election. I'm of the opinion that Ghana cannot be a better place after the September 1st election with the PPP in office, because I'm seeing all the signs. I've seen the signs. I don't care about the utterances. I've seen the signs. I see the Barlet tyrant saying that they're not signing any new agreements for the gas to energy project. They're not signing any new agreements for exploration, oil, etc., and so on, because it would be unethical for them to sign these major contracts leading up to the election. That's true. That's understood. That is always acceptable behavior. For the most part, every politician around the world knows that. If you're close to the election, you don't want to sign any contract that would hang around the noose, hang around the neck of the next government like a noose, right? Waiting to strangle them, like the hangman's noose. Because there's no certainty. When you go to an election, there's no certainty that you will win that election or you will lose that election. And so when the Barlet tyrant comes out and say, we won't do this and we won't do that and we won't do the other, it's not out of magnanimity. It's not out of a deeper sense of right and wrong. It's an age-honored tradition, if you call it that. An unwritten rule, perhaps. Right? So yeah, I don't think this man is being magnanimous by saying we ain't gonna sign nothing leading up to the next election. Good. In the same breath, I heard promises of people receiving this or communities receiving this and community receiving that after the next election. Again, those can only be promises because the reality is nobody knows what the outcome of the next election will be. And certainly, what did this happen? This is interesting. Oh, nobody knows what the outcome of the next election will be. And so, quite frankly, those are simply utterances. Might be of intent, but when we look at the PPP's previous utterances of intent, and we look at what we as citizens realized after they got back into government through fear of all means, we know that those utterances of intent don't mean much. We know they don't mean much. I've not seen public servants receiving their 50% salary increase up until now. I've not seen the PPP returning the monies that came from the coalition government increasing ministers' salaries varying from 5 to 50%, because the leader of the opposition did benefit from that increase. The members of parliament of the PPP did benefit from that increase. And the then general secretary of the PPP, very leader of the opposition at the time, Brad Jagdeo, said that when they got into government, they were going to reverse that increase, number one. Right? They were going to reverse that increase, number one. And number two, they were going to return the money that were paid to them. Remember them saying that the money was being deposited into a special account? Yes, those are all utterances of intent. And we have not seen those utterances become reality. As a matter of fact, what we have seen is not only the members of the opposition, well, the then members of the opposition, now government, not only did they receive and spend every cent of that increase, but upon that increase, they added their own increase. Upon that increase, every increase that was given to the public servants by the PPP was given to the ministers and members of the PPP government. Check it. So not only did they get that 50 or 5 to 50% increase, the one-off 5 to 50% increase that the coalition government gave its ministers. Because once the coalition gave its ministers that 5 to 50% increase while they were in government, in that first year, they never ever gave them another increase, despite the fact that they were increasing public servants' salary yearly. They never gave themselves another increase. But the PPP, which said that it disagreed with that increase and was going to return it, did not return it. But on top of that, they gave themselves annual increases, just as they give public servants increases. And so if I were to look at history, like I like to do, past behavior, precedents, then I would say I can't go about making decisions on the utterances of intent of the PPP, because so far they have not stuck to those utterances of intent. Even if you look at free education at the University of Ghana, when did they implement it? The last few months into their term. Why? because they hope to say to citizens, well, we did promise this, but we did promise it and we are doing it, we have done it. Because it is a next appeasement, it's another vote buying scheme for this upcoming election. Because fool yourself not. Youths are the majority of the voting population currently. And so you're going to see all kinds of vote buying schemes aimed at young people. Not to say that they don't aim at the older folks. Right? I'm not saying they don't aim at the older folks, but they're aiming at young people for the greater part. And since young people are now for now and they don't look back and they don't look forward and so on and so forth, according to some people, they're fertile minds for that influence. And so we have to spend some time and share some wisdom with them. Winston Jordan is telling us only senior ministers of the coalition government got 50% increase. And there were no more than 13 of them. Right? Good, 13 of them. Good. So, can we rely on utterances? And as I'm talking about relying on utterances, a lot of people place a lot of emphasis, they say, on parties' manifesto. And some folks have been saying to me, my God, just spare me a minute. Somebody's ringing down my bell at the gate, and I know they ain't going to stop, so I might as well go and answer them before it's too late. All right? I'll be with you shortly.
All right, so today we are here at Club Twilight up in Buxton, and we are here to talk about all that's going on up here. Trust me, if you are on the East Coast, you're in Buxton, you're in town, you're looking for a place to get away to, this is the place. The Cutters, mwah. Listen, I'll be having some just now again. We'll talk about that. And then, of course, the ambience is beautiful, fully air conditioned. The decor is on point. The music's on point. Everything's on point. It's just me. I need some work. But everything else that belongs to this club here is on point. So if you want to find a nice little place where you can just drive out of town and have some drinks, have some food, you can call, you can order your stuff and just take it. You don't have to stay. Or if you want to stay here, that's what's up. And of course, they have special events for Valentine's. You can rent a hall. You can rent a hall, honey. You can rent a hall for weddings, for birthday parties, to have a bash. I hope he edits that out. But you know, whatever it is, this is definitely the place to be. So it's on Sideline Lamb. You definitely want to ensure that you check this place out. But it's on your to-do list. All right, on your to-do list. This is definitely the place to check out. You know, a really cool, chill spot here in Buxton. I like this. This is Buxton needed this. We needed this. I needed this. You definitely needed too. Thank you. All right, so you might be wondering where we are. Still in Buxton at Club Twilight. That's where we are. So Club Twilight also has like an Airbnb as well. So you can come, drink, drunk, and come in the back and lie down. Look at that. Look at that. Perfection. And the people come in the room and so on. The bed sheet matching the blind, matching the carpet, matching the this, matching the that. We know but we things in Buxton don't play with the way. So definitely if you want to come and you know you may be having a wedding or whatever and you just want to overnight and just have a good time because you're gonna be drunk. We've got too much road accidents. So you definitely want to come, drink, have a good time. They have several rooms that you can rent. They have your toilet, you have your bath, you have your sink, you have your dining area, you have the this is nice. I like it. Anyways, to my friends and my family, if you're looking for me, I'll be overnighting. Also for those persons who are traveling in from overseas, you want a nice, cozy place out of town, then Club Twilight, call them up, look them up on social media. They have their own Facebook page, and ensure that you come up the side and have a good time. Have a good time. Have a good time. Sorry, I'm sorry. That's it.
Don't be a victim. Beat the heat with. Yeah, thank you for your patience. As I was saying, a lot of people place a lot of emphasis on manifestos, and you know, just the other day somebody was asking me or expressing to me the desire to see a quote-unquote presidential debate or candidates debate leading up to the next election or any elections in the future. My response to that? Manifestos tell us in a general term what a government in waiting intends to do, or so we believe. Manifesto is a publication of ideas, where we believe we can take this country, what do we believe should be done for this country, etc., etc. But manifestos are just like any other plan. They're plans. Since you look at them on paper, they're successful. But the teeth or the meat of the matter is when you get into government and you are confronted by the reality of government. I could put in my manifesto, I will give every citizen $2 million a month from our income. And I can find justification for doing it. And I can convince them that I will find the money to do it. But what happens when I get into government tomorrow morning and I realize that the PPP has carted off all of the money that should have been there, coming from the different natural resource sectors, not only oil. And so I was calculating, all right, we can get so much money from the other sectors, and so we can keep that to run the country and we can distribute to citizens the oil money. But then you realize that, hey, there really ain't nothing in the other sectors of the other natural resource sectors. So the country is wholly and solely dependent on oil money. What happens when you find that out? You can't stick to no manifesto promise. In many instances, how many citizens go back to those manifestos and look at them and say, well, they had promised us this and they've delivered. They have promised us that and they didn't deliver. Is anybody keeping a checklist of what was promised in those manifestos and what really manifested itself in government? And presidential debates. You go to a presidential debate or a candidate's debate and you show your best face and you put on your best argument and you use your best language to convince the viewers that you are the best thing for them. And after that debate, you take off your mask and you return to being the demon you are. But people are sold on on you waxing lyrical in the debate. Kamala Prasad versus not Kamala Prasad, Kamala Harris. Then we'll argue did well in our debate with Trump. Trump waxed lyrical in the debate with Kamala. And at the end of the day, you have a Trump government and people can't sleep at night. So I personally don't put much store on manifesto, and I personally don't put much store on debates. Because to me, if the persons who advance those documents, if I call them that, intend to deceive, that is all they will do, deceive. I would rather, and I say it all the time, I look at history. I will look at you and see what you promised in the past and what you delivered. I will look at you and see how you behaved in government in the past and even currently. And I will judge you on that behavior. Nature is nature. A man's nature is a man's nature. No matter how we try to cover it up, it's going to escape at some point in time, and you judge him on that. The PPP will hire the biggest and the brightest influencer or influencers to convince the world that they're best for Ghana, because they have access to the resources to do it. They're going to give you the most grandiose of schemes of things to come because they got access to the resources to promote it. But look at the behavior in government and then tell me if you can rest assured or you can rest comfortable that these things are going to be delivered. That is how I make my political decisions. And from where I am sitting, the PPP has already shown its hand for too long. They've already showed their hands for too long. And the only thing we should be doing with them is kicking them out. Kicking them out. Give a new set of people an opportunity to show what they really can do and will do for the citizens of this country. The PNC, the APNU was in government before. There have been changes between the death of boredom and the death of height. Changes took place. There were changes from 2015 to 2020. Changes that benefited the people. Albeit perhaps not as far-reaching as people would have desired. But the fact is, in government, they show that they had better intentions to the citizens of this country. Yes, fairness took place. Yes, Granger left the ordinary man and woman to suffer under the PPP. Yes. But Granger is not at the hem of the PNC now. Granger is not at the hem of the AP and UWPA coalition now. You have new team leaders. With new team leaders, you're likely to have a new pick of team. Are you willing to give that team an opportunity to show you what they're capable of delivering? Are you willing to give that team the opportunity to prove to you that they can deliver? Can't judge Norton on Granger standards and screw up. I mean, Granger screwed up. Norton is Norton. Norton has never had the authority, presidential or ministerial. See what he will do with that authority. Likewise, David Hines is a part and a leader of that coalition. Has never had that opportunity. Give them the opportunity, see what they will come out with. They might not be able to make the grandiose promises, the big promises that the PPP can make, because the PPP is in government. The PPP got access to the resources. The PPP know exactly what's going on in the treasury and so on and so forth. But have they shown you over the period that they've been out there offering themselves up for leadership, that they have a willingness to improve your lot? To improve your lot. If they've shown you that, then you can only know whether or not they will deliver if you give them the opportunity to deliver. Only if you give them the opportunity to deliver. I'm saying, well, you could lose. Well, you could lose. Quite frankly, anything other than the PPP might be better for Guyana right now. Let me tell you, I'm going to delve into one specific issue right now as to why I know that the PPP has no intentions of doing better for this country even after the next election. Sugar. Sugar. SUGAR, sugar, from Gaisuko. Sugar was dying a slow death. Sugar is practically dead. Sugar has been bleeding the coffers of this country because of the amount of resources that we have to take and plug into sugar to keep it on life support. All of the other sectors are suffering. Education is suffering, health is suffering, public servants are suffering, infrastructure is suffering, because all of those billions that is being plugged into sugar to keep it on life support could have been used elsewhere to improve the lot of Guyanese. Why are we spending billions on sugar to keep it on life support, yet we are importing sugar from neighboring countries? Are you going to spend thousands to mine poultry? And at the end of the day, you still are going to spend thousands to buy poultry meat? Or eggs? Let me deal with eggs, for example. Will you spend thousands of dollars to rear layers and they ain't laying nothing? Or even when they lay, you ain't see where they lay, so you ain't getting nothing from them? And every day, week, month, or year, you still have to go and spend thousands of dollars to buy eggs? I think any wise human being, any smart, any sane human being will say, it doesn't make no sense I'm mining these layers, because in any case, I ain't getting eggs from them. I still got to go and buy eggs. It's money wasting. And so use the same analogy with Gaisuko. Does it make sense spending billions in Gaisuko to keep their estates open, but we importing sugar? And we can't make the smallest of targets set for production? And even when we make production to sell on the world market, the price we're getting for the product is half of what we spent to produce it, or less than half of what we spent to produce it? Would you as a business person spend $10 to make an item and know that very well when you take it to the marketplace, you're only going to get $4 for it? Would you? I'm sure you wouldn't. At least I wouldn't. I gotta be brain dead to be spending $10 to produce an item, knowing very well when I take it to the marketplace, I will only get 40% of that. That is what this government is doing with Gaisuko. And so when you hear the presidents and then more martyrs say, I will make sugar great again, or we will make sugar great again, you know that we ain't going no place with the people as a nation. You know we ain't going no place as a nation with the PPP. Because they will continue to take billions of our money and put it into an industry that is making no sense. And this has not been happening yesterday. It didn't start happening last night. It was happening for several years under the PPP government. Sharon Darcy voted against the coalition because the coalition closed a couple of estates. And he believed that the coalition mistreated Gaisuko workers who were predominantly Indian, and so he voted against them. What Charles didn't say to this nation is that while the coalition did close a couple of estates and was right-sizing the industry, as they say, right-sizing the industry, working to bring it to a place where production cost was lower than it was producing currently, even if it was only for domestic consumption. What Charles didn't say is that all of those persons who had to be laid off as a result of the closure of estates were given an opportunity to upskill. That is, if you were a cane harvester, provision was made for you to go and learn a new skill. You wanted to learn plumbing, you could go and learn plumbing. You want to learn carpentry, you could go and learn carpentry. You want to learn catering, you could go and learn catering. Provision was made for that. So it wasn't a case of just shuttering the estate and chasing you home and let you run around and roam around the place with no hope of nothing to find, no new job to find, no new source of income. They were preparing you, or they were preparing the workers for new opportunities. But Charles didn't tell you all along. Right? Charles didn't tell you all of that. And of course, the media didn't take the time to go there and find those very workers who were laid off but reskilled or upskilled to tell their stories. I remember reading about one of them who became a successful cash crop farmer, because when the rails, I think, was closed, lands were given to them who wanted lands to farm, and he became a big shot cash crop farmer. I remember in Borbis, there were those who were actually catering for the government, having gone to catering classes and so on. The very Gaisuko, in its contracted state, was hiring them to cater for meetings, etc., etc. Nobody was telling those stories. Charles definitely wasn't telling those stories. And what the PPP didn't tell you is that sugar was dying since they were in office. Here's an article. June 30th, 2017. EU ends sugar support for Guyana. 30th of June, 2017, EU ends sugar support for Guyana. After more than 7 years of plugging in excess of $348 billion to assist Guyana in recovering from a crippling 36% price cut in sugar, it appears that the European Union may be unwilling to give more. The last disbursement occurred last year. That would have been 2016, obviously, with EU's ambassador Jonesh Vedetti making it clear yesterday that no more help is forthcoming at this time for the troubled industry. The envoy was speaking along with several officials during a press conference. Listen to this now. Between 2006 and 2016, the money never went directly to Gaisuku, but to the Treasury, where the administration of the day would determine how to use the funds. According to the officials, the disbursements were never based on how well the sugar industry did, but rather on indicators measuring reforms which Guyana passed. Guyana was among more than 18 countries, including Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, and St. Kitts and Nevis, that benefited from the accompanying measures for sugar protocol countries to support a number of African, Caribbean, and Pacific countries that were adjusting to the 2006 reform of the EU's sugar regime. That year saw the implementation of a 36% phased price cut for countries that sold sugar to the EU. So since 2006, when the PPP was in government, the EU, which was a preferential market for Guyanese sugar, instituted a 36% price cut. And they said to Guyana, we are no longer going to be preferential for you, because our people are demanding a bigger share of the sugar market, and we have to deliver it to them. Let me continue. That year saw the implementation of a 36% phase price cut for countries that sold sugar to the EU. The AMSPSs supported a wide variety of projects that range from improving competitiveness to promoting diversification. A range of projects that were aimed at improving competitiveness and promoting diversification. You notice the support from the EU was to improve competitiveness and promote diversification. Improve competitiveness, if you can produce at a price that was competitive on the international market, then go for it. If you can't produce at a price that is competitive, then diversify. In Guyana, we know that our prices are not competitive, but we haven't seen the diversification. And so the dunces that were in power at that time were simply that, dunces. They continue to produce at uncompetitive prices. Let's continue. The budget is distributed among the beneficiary countries according to their needs, depending on the level of impact of the reform and on the importance of the sector in their economies. The confirmation that no immediate plans are there for further financing to the sugar industry comes as the EU prepares to allow more beet sugar produced in Europe to flood the market there after farmers protested for a larger market share. So this is 2016 we're talking about. This reform started since 2006 with a 36% cut in prices. So we ain't providing any support anymore. What we're doing now is allowing the European market or European producers of beet sugar to take a bigger market share. How then, if you're producing locally here in Guyana at an uncompetitive price, will you continue to plug money into the sugar industry to say you're producing for the international market? Guyana would badly want more help from the EU, as its sugar industry is in dire straits, with 17,000 workers and a large chunk of its foreign exchange earnings at stake. Last year, the century-old Wales estate, West Bank Demerara, was closed with two more, Rose Hall in Bobbies and more on the east coast of Demerara, slated to be closed. Prices of sugar, Gaisuko said this week, have also fallen by 30% on the world market, making the cost of production almost 3 times what the state-owned company is selling for. So I was selling about 40%. This report in 2017 said that Guyana was only getting 1/3 the price it was producing for on the international market. Its production cost was 3 times what it was getting on the international market for its produce. Who will do that in the name of business? Talk to me. There have been several protests organized by opposition-aligned unions in recent weeks over the closure of estates. Government insists that it cannot continue to spend billions annually to bail out the industry. You all tell me where this stands there. And it's 2016, 2017. 8 years later, the president, finally, is telling us he will make sugar great again. Well, Jack Dio, having collected hundreds of millions or billions of dollars from the EU while he was in government, invested that in the Skeldon packaging factories, what they call them. Ask them how much sugar they've ever refined and packaged. Because I guess it was his intention or his belief that he could make sugar great again. He has failed. And that is only one among his many failures, because he is a known failure. He failed in that little effort of diversification, if you can call it diversification, because in that diversification, for me, if you're diversifying from sugar and you're going to packaging sugar, where's the point? The same sugar, you're still dependent on that input sugar. And if there's no sugar, you ain't packaging anything. So they got a white elephant there. I hear all kind of plans they had for it to convert it into energy production and all kind of plans they had for it. But in 2025, a clown named Irfan tells us that he gonna make sugar again. He gonna make sugar great again. He is going to make sugar great again. Let me share another article with you. This time it's from the Guyana Chronicle. It's a letter dated February 2, 2020. Dear editor, it's headline, why was the 32 billion, here's how much money? 32 billion European Union grant not used to improve Guyana's sugar industry. In 2014, the local European Union representative confirmed that Guyana received 136 million euros, that's 32 billion Guyana dollars, between 2007 and 2013 on the accompanying measures for a sugar protocol program. The EU allocated grants to Guyana and 18 other African, Caribbean, and Pacific countries, having made the decision to discontinue EU preferential sugar prices to the countries. Unless new markets with higher preferential prices were secured, the countries would have had to sell sugar at lower world market prices. The grants were intended to help countries prepare for a future without preferential EU sugar prices. 32 billion Guyana dollars. In 2007, the ASMP 32 billion Guyana dollars grant provided a perfect opportunity for Guyana to make improvements to the sugar industry. The complete loss of European Union preferential sugar pricing would not occur for several years, and the ASMP grant funding was available to make needed improvements to the sugar industry. The $32 billion was never invested in Gaisuku and has not been accounted for by the government of the day, the PPP. It was never invested in Gaisuku, and it was never accounted for according to this letter writer. Guyana's sugar industry cannot be financially viable without lowering agricultural costs, which represented 66% of total operating costs by 2014. The industry's agricultural cost was 26 US cents and 24 US cents per pound of sugar, respectively, in 2013 and 2014. Best in class agriculture cost is $8 US cents per pound of sugar. So imagine it's costing you 26 US cents to produce and 24 US cents to produce. And the best practice, if I call it that, is 8 US cents. So you're producing at 3 times higher. Right? And that is in 2014. Excessive agricultural costs resulted from low cane cultivation, low sugar yields, that is, less sugar is produced in Guyana sugar factories compared with other sugar producers from the same weight of cane processed, and costly farming practices. Those are 3 reasons why Guyana is producing at those exorbitant costs. The 2015 COI report documented a clear trend of cane cultivation yields decreasing to 56 tons per hectare by 2014, from a consistent 80 tons per hectare 5 decades earlier. Low cane cultivation yields meant a larger land area was cultivated, then yields were much higher. than if yields were much higher. Therefore, it was more costly to prepare, cultivate, maintain, and harvest the larger land area. Also, larger quantities of quality chemicals and fertilizers would have been used. Sugar yields likely cannot improve above historical highs unless new cane varieties are developed by research and development. The 2015 COI report showed alternating periods of historically low sugar yields and periods of historically high sugar yields. Such trending was emblematic, that is, of poor or non-existent work processes that ultimately produced inconsistent results. Harold Davis and John Piggott documented in the 2015 COI field report the issues and practices contributing to poor sugar yields. On the topic of costly farming practices, refer to Tony Vera's November 29, 2019 letter in a local newspaper discussing mechanized farming and high labor costs in the sugar industry. Many opportunities existed for farming cost reductions. No successful tactics have been implemented to rein in farming costs. Instead of placing a priority on improving the key performance factors above contributing to high agricultural costs using ASMP, $32 billion EU grant, the previous government borrowed US $187 million and built a new scale factory promoted as a silver bullet to solve the financial woes of Guyana's sugar industry. The most efficient scale factory cannot lower excessive agricultural costs already accumulated before cane grinding commenced at the new factory. The new scale factory should never have been a priority over achieving reduced agricultural costs. Compounding the disastrous scale decision was the expanded cultivation of additional lands to produce cane for the new factory. Additionally, cane cultivation at 56 to 66 tons per hectare increased agricultural costs. Had there been a strategy to increase cane culture yields, little or no new land cultivation would have been required and increased costs would have been avoided. I'll stop there. There is a lot more I can read from that letter. So if I'm to listen to the presidents talk about making sugar great again, and I refer to history, I look back and see what was preventing and still is preventing sugar from being great again, I can't look to this cabal with hope that come September 1, after September 1, we're going to be in a better place. Can't. Because they're doing the same thing. Running on a wheel like a hamster. Ring a roses, a bucket full of posies. And this is what happened. But they can make these promises and these utterances of intent. The majority youthful population that has to go to the vote. A majority youthful population that believe what happened in the past, the thing has nothing to do with the current and future, because one of them told me that. But here, I've presented to you as concise as I can. One other reason, if you can call it that, why the PPP can never be good for this country. They ain't good now, and they ain't going to good after September 1st. The lines are open. 6225933 is the number to call. Let us make Guyana great again. Not sugar. Sugar primarily caters to the employment needs of one group of people. But if we were to make Guyana great again, we will be catering to the needs of every citizen of this country using the resources of this country. And every citizen of this country obviously would include those who are employed in the sugar industry. Caller Live, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Caller, proceed, please.
Yes, good morning to you and all my black brothers and sisters. Thank God for another day. Yes, the road is rough, but when there is storm, they will be calm. My black brother and sister in Guyana. You open all kinds of worms, and I will continue to expose all them worms this morning. What the government did not tell Kodi people in Guyana, and the government, the previous government, that the same Kodi Jumbi government, they did not inform the coalition that Venezuela ain't taking rice anymore. And them leave that rice on the wharf, Colima rice, business rice, for Latin. And coalition we got to find money and pay them wicked Kodi today. Business Kodi today. And Granger began to use his brains and watch Flash Garden and try to, before it spoil, give it to certain country. Them Kodi government ain't tell them Kodi that. It's when Winston Jordan went to Venezuela, or if Venezuela come, and then there was made to understand that I told the previous government we're not taking any rice anymore. And Granger, you know why Granger upset those 40,000 Venezuela when he know the wrong thing Venezuela did to us. Let me say this thing. I listened piece of Sharon Duncan last night. He said, why you guys have to bring out David Granger out of retirement for telling you policy is better than power? Sharon Duncan, my friend, a young politician, you got to use both power and policy. You cannot use policy alone, because if you don't use your power to enforce it, it will go nowhere. And the policy that Granger make, the one that Granger put in place, did not benefit black people. It benefit Kodi people. Which one, Flash Garden, talked to us this morning? The one where he put in place Article 60. It can benefit black man. It benefit Kodi. That make Kodi in office, and black man approach today, and I'm a little baby girl are dead. So we got to be careful how we use the words. Study the words first before you use it. Let me open, you open up all kinds of worms. And I intend to kill them all this morning with my words. That guy, Chawandas, why Chawandas said yes is because of this, what Jagdio approaching. I don't know if my black brother could remember when there was a phone call coming to in Parliament, but 2 times or 3 times. And the 4th time he get up and go outside. And a man with 19 charge follow him. And he said, man, answer this call for me. And when Ali answered the call, he said, your sister died, and they're telling me conduct with them. Chawandas again, and he brought a basement. Listen, my black brother sister, because Jagdio, a rule Guyana, always said, Jagdio do not rule Guyana as a politician, as politics. He said, we were going home. A phone call came into him and said, hey, a ticket is here for you. And you got to reach at the airport tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock. You got to be there 3 hours before time. He said, this is the man where I said is a bad man. Look what he did for me. So Jagdio knew what Ali did for China. So he went to China and said, hey, boy, I challenge to run for president for 3rd term, but the court shut me down. But your friend qualified to be president. And I need your help for your friend to become president. That is when Jagdio tell him that we're going to call up something there the 18th of December. And one people said, yes. So you could get all the election because everything not fixed. And your friend will be president. That is the main reason Chawandas, that made Jagdio couldn't say yes to Anil, Pierre, and nobody else. Because if it don't work out, that Chawandas could say yes for Ali, nobody else. Last before we go, all you believe that Ikins, Badal, and Michelle is straight up that bail because Jagdio used them again with politics. The inquiry that David Granger put there and Mr. Palslow was the head of that inquiry. You find all three of them was lying, and I believe all three of them you have to demote or something like that. Jagdio and them say, hey, bye, I'll give you back your job, but I will get a chance now to take back with him because I disrespect you to the world. The same thing he did with this, with Clearing the zombie. He said he went to Clear the Sing first, and she refused to turn him down. But the question is, when he went back again, what he tell her, what he promised her to make the second time, she said yes. Because the same inquiry, when this young black intelligent lawyer from Guyanese lawyer Peter's originally from Canada, when he was rocking shit, she was mad and upset. Jagger went back and told her that she said, look, you have a chance to pay back. This is how Jagger ruling Guyana with politics. That is why he's in office, because he put policy for control black man, police black man, and he put power that we must not go back in off. He used both together, policy and policy and power. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your call. The lines remain open. 622-5933 is the number to call. You tune to the Guyanese Morning Time. I see. Call you on. Good morning.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Amsterdam. Good morning, everyone in the Guyanese diaspora. Good morning to all Guyanese. I'd like to ask a question to the public, being that we are voicing our concerns about our likes and dislikes and how we have been governed in Guyana. So I'd like to ask a question to the opposition, because we really speak our concerns through the opposition. With regards to Amanza Walton Desir, she is Shadow Foreign Affairs Minister. And the General Secretary of the PNC, he's another attorney at law. These are pretty good people. So I asked them this question in regards to the recent sanctions that came down on the PPP administration and all the sanctions with criminality, etc. Are there criminal elements of sanctions to Ms. Amanza, because she's a lawyer and that's her area, foreign diplomacy? These are diplomatic sanctions. And what I've been saying from the outset, that diplomatic sanctions are one thing, but you can't have smoke without fire. Meaning that you can't have sanctions on cocaine dealing, trafficking, corruption with May Thomas, and all of these things. Where are the criminal elements, Amanza? And I'm not beating up on Ms. Amanza here. I'm saying that we speak through you. We speak through our party representatives. And we want to see some criminal actions on these sanctions because they exist. Again, there can be no smoke without fire. And diplomatic sanctions have certain criminal elements. So for Bench Chop and Rickford Bork and those in the diaspora, and to Hakeem Jeffries, because they seem to be representing us in the Brooklyn constituency as West Indians. So we know, how do we move forward on the criminal elements of these sanctions? Secondly, On the same criminal elements, aspect, the Constitution and constitutionally the legal duties of Claudette Singh, which she did not perform. There are certain legal duties that Claudette Singh has sworn to uphold as GCOM chairperson. And according to Mr. Vincent Alexander, there are certain elements of Claudette Singh's duties that she did not perform. And I'm going to name a few of them. According to Mr. Vincent Alexander on Politics 101, he said that Claudette Singh did not give to the observation team in 2020 the complete list of complaints, like 4,000 overseas voters, what Commissioner of Police Leslie James found, dead persons who were not present in Guyana on March the 2nd, 2020. Claudette Singh had the report. We knew she had the report. Vincent Alexander, as a commissioner in GCOM, said on Politics 101, she did not give in the report. Lowenfield's report, those were not given in. So what do we have here? We have a responsibility that Claudette Singh swore to uphold, and she did not uphold those duties. What does that mean? That means that she is, at a bare minimum, criminally negligent. How so? Because the elements of her responsibility were not adhered to, upheld. So I'm saying to the opposition legally, Claudette Singh should be taken to court for dereliction of duty. And if you need to be spelled out, it's very simple for the people to understand. She needs to uphold her legal responsibilities, and she didn't do that. So at a bare minimum, she should be taken to court. Lastly, Skeldon Estate. Skeldon Estate, Mr. Amsterdam was just talking about Skeldon Estate. It was the PPP who was closing down estates before David Arthur Granger became president. The question is, why did Jack Dill close those estates before the PNC even was in government? And Skeldon Estate, I read in a document from the United States, the Guyana consulate, it says that Skeldon Estate was going to be costing at least $200 million US. That's about around 2000, 2003. And $2 million US then is equal to about at least 300, almost 400 million US dollars today. That could have been monies that we could have been using just to show how the PPP are squandering and stealing our monies. Region 6. Do people know that people in Region 6, from Krabby Creek all the way to New Amsterdam, etc., quarantine people are very annoyed and disappointed in how the PPP dropped them on their face? I'm talking about sugar workers. And when sugar falters, everything else dries up in Corriverton, in Rosal, in Port Miranda, in Amsterdam. Everything comes to a screeching halt. If sugar is not grinding, everything comes to a halt within about 2 weeks. Nothing could barely sell. And that is a result of bad management by the PPP. They said that when they made Skeldon Estate, this is what they said in the United States consulate monthly memorandum that they sold. They said that when Skeldon comes online, they will be selling electricity. That's in the early 2003. They said they will have so much electricity to sell that they were going to sell electricity to Suriname. That's what they said. All lies. Right? So my point is that we need to speak to people in the quarantine area and to see how they are so vexed. Mustafa, the agriculture minister, he is doing a piss poor job in quarantine with regards to agriculture. And the people are still left wanting and complaining that they aren't satisfying them. These are areas that where we need to campaign in regards to the insufficiency of employment and agriculture in the Region 6 area. And again, in my conclusion, I just want to go back to Amanza and the PNC group that we want to get rid of the PPP. And I think the Americans have bowled us a ball in our court. And they're saying to us that the PPP are corrupt, criminal, etc. Then it behooves us to take that ball and hit it for six, to push for the criminal components or the criminal elements of the sanctions in the United States courts, first and foremost. And if we're doing that, then we're allowing the PPP to jump off the hook and jump back in the trench. Once again, thank you for giving me the time to talk to our people.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. When you really study this case of Adriana Young, when you look up all the videos, all the captions that you get at the hotel, it's only a jackass it will take to say that this young lady was murdered and placed in that pool. I'm talking to the people worldwide. Let me keep talking about that this girl then drowned in the pool. Yo, enough is enough. The whole world know, whole world see, the whole world realize that this young lady murders, this young child murders, was pre-orchestrated by the government of Guyana and the owner of Dede International Hotel. I think that it's time now that everybody must realize that this girl was murdered and placed in that pool. Let me leave all the dumb thugs them. They don't have an heart. They are not human. They are set of pieces that parade this country along with the PPP installed government. God, this is the only people on this face of this earth saying and try to tell Guyanese people and people throughout this world that that girl was drowned in that pool. Come on, bro. Come on, bro. Come on, bro. Come on, bro. This will never, ever, ever, ever go at rest. You know why? God, these people are too blatant. They are too deceiving. They are too unjust, so to speak. They're going to look at this world. And before I go, they're going to look at this world. This girl murdered, young lady murdered, was viewed all over the world at that hotel. There is pieces. You just have to sit down, analyze, and put all the pieces them together. And you will see, and you will know if you have a real heart or a conscious mind to know that this girl was murdered there. You understand me? This thing gone political. You know why it gone political? It had a PPP installed government of the day. Make it to be political because they fail to do what they're supposed to do in the beginning of this murder. They was trying to cover up and protect this guy hotel instead of protecting that young child. And I hope that Guyanese people seem that we in the election season, the election year, that they must know where to put them eggs, especially our African brothers and sisters in this country called Guyana. And if we, as African brothers and sisters, remember they do it too. No, so all four of the races they do it too. And this one touches all, and there's no reason and no cause we must boycott whatsoever that we see writing on the wall, big writing on the wall. Understand me? And go the opposite side. Come on, bro. Come on, Guyanese. Come on, all right-thinking Guyanese. Show the length and breadth of this wonderful and stinking rich country. We have so much to be gained of this country, and we're gonna allow it to run by the wayside of this install and this backward and this racial government to continue the works. Come on, bro. Enough is enough. Time for we put this to a halt, and this is the time. There's no other time but this time. The world are watching. Everybody in the right sense, our right thinking are watching. Come on, Guyanese people, let us wake up and smell this beautiful coffee, smell the beautiful air that we breathe in and breathe out. Come on, bro. Come on, bro. Come on. Guyana are a stinking rich country, and if we want to be rich, we got to get rid of this install government. Y'all do have a wonderful day. Thank you for listening to me, and I hope that what you listen to me make good sense. Y'all do have a blessed day.
Kadaki, blessings and good morning to you and our Guyanese listeners from across the globe. Kadaki, people from Trinidad and Tobago and from the diaspora are very much concerned about the upcoming election in Guyana. Reason for that, we've been seeing for the last 5 years how this Indian racial government has treated our people, our black people in Guyana, and we are very much concerned about that. Personally, myself, Karaki, if the Essequibo is no longer belongs to Guyana, I'm asking a question. Is people from the Essequibo is eligible to vote, or they will be voting in this election? Because Maduro elect a governor in the Essequibo and say that the Essequibo is part of Venezuela. Now I'm asking a question. Is people from the Essequibo is eligible to vote in this Guyana 2025 election? Karaki, could you shed some highlight on that, please? Have a good one. Blessings.
Well, of course, citizens of Essequibo are citizens of Guyana. Essequibo belongs to Guyana. And so Essequibians belongs to Guyana, they're Guyanese. And the elections is intended for Guyanese to select the government. And so, yes, definitely, citizens of Essequibo will be able to vote in these elections and should be allowed to vote in these elections. EC crystals, party ice in large and small quantities. Call 682-7981 or visit us at Club Twilight, Sideline Dam, Buxton North. EC crystals. Call you on. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Kadaki. Good morning to you, universe. Mr. Kadaki, I want to find out something. What is it the opposition doing? Let G come to reality, because we are seeing that wicked woman sing what's sitting there. All intent is to rig election for the PPP. We are actually coming up with all kinds of skullduggery and it's time this woman need to go. Because from since 2020 election, these people can't even biometric and clean voters list. But this wicked woman so addictive. She just said, I don't know, like they promise you something or they have something for her or something like that. And if this one has no regard for this country whatsoever, and she don't have no regard for the people of this country, now you're going to claim we can say the president can't vote. The president is not people are part of this country. Come on, these people need to get it right. And I want to know what the opposition going to do to let GCOM come to its senses, because everybody's seeing that. So all prepare to rig the election to put the PPP in power. Because we all know PPP never win no free fair election.
Caller.
Thank you very much.
Caller.
Yeah, Mr.
As a citizen who have witnessed all of these shenanigans, let me call them that, from GCOM and the PPP and so on and so forth, what do you believe the opposition should do, number one? And what do you believe, for me, most importantly, citizens should do?
Well, I want to know what they're going to do, because GCOM got to get it right or something, because the people vote matter. One, the president not part of this country. The president is living here. Why the president cannot vote? But we are still going on with this woman sitting there. This woman so incompetent there. She just need to resign or something, because she's so incompetent. And she all with the PPP, everything that the PPP doing.
Caller, we know all of that. We've called all the time for her resignation, and we continue to call for her resignation. But as I would say, things remain the same. The more things change, the more they remain the same. What do you suggest be done by the opposition parties and by citizens in general to change this situation?
I think the international people, all them who, the ABC and all them who come in to say they're verifying election, they should need to go to GCOM and let GCOM get this thing right, because every year they keep happening all the time, every time election. The PPP just want to stay in power, they just want to grab power to just continue to steal the resources of this country. That's what they all aim about. They don't care about nobody, so don't have the promises and all the way they're running around. All them, but they're going to do this and do that. That's a sham. We all know, we are still going on. You understand? So I feel the international art ABC who come in and say they're coming for free election. There won't be no free election, because all them going to get a thing on whatsoever, and they select the paper ball and all them disappear. So we need to get some sort of mechanism in place. So this woman need to go, and she come in not an independent body since 2020 election. This woman should get this thing right. Now it's 2025 and not election on us, and she can't get it right. She all for signing with the PPP to rig the election. We are still going on right now. Right now, they're disenfranchising the prisoners, they're disenfranchising the registration, the potential, the thing, all things called that we should try to do, and people should see what's going on with them. Because all the PPP people is capable of doing is hold on to power to continue to steal the resources of this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your call.
Thank you.
Let me say this. As is known, I believe across the world. I believe across the world. Of course, there are some exceptions. If you are incarcerated, you lose the right to vote. And when I say incarcerated, I'm not talking about being on remand. I'm talking about being sentenced. If you're sentenced to jail, then naturally you don't get the opportunity to vote. Caller, you're on. Good morning.
Hello?
Caller, you're on. Good morning.
Yes. Piggybacking on the caller there. Are you telling me the opposition is going to sit back and watch a GCOM nominated the thing named the Attorney General as the advisor? Are we going to sit down and allow all of this to happen in our eyes and don't make a last minute dash at the CCJ to show them that this woman is extremely compromised? Because this is too much. I think what's his name? You just speak about it, and Coffee was speaking about it. Claudette has sworn an oath for some rules that she has to keep. Now, an advisor of the GCOM should not be coming from the Attorney General of Guyana. And we just can't sit back and allow that. You know, I know it's at the last minute right now to bring protesters out there, but something have to happen. This election have to either cancel or we have to get something to be done about this situation, because nothing is not happening. Like, it's been 3 years plus the opposition been asking for clean voters list, biometrics, everything fall on deaf ears. Now, when I see this thing here with the Attorney General, I said, wow, you think PPP would allow this to happen? I'm asking you a question. You think PPP would allow, when the APNU, APNU was in power, they would have allowed this to happen? Because right now, for as how I see it right now, and this is the truth I'm telling you, I'm sorry for my Afro-Guyanese, because this is an ethnic cleanse that's going to take place in the next 5 years. If you look at the rate of how the PPP bring doctors and foreigners into the country, they only go to one race, one specific race they go to, and bring them in. You mean we don't have people in Nigeria? Nigeria produced the most doctors in Africa. We don't have people in South Africa. I mean, the Haitians can't come to Guyana because they make it impossible for these people to come to Guyana. You know how many thousands of people would like to come and reside in Guyana from Haiti? I'm gonna watch on to see, but I think we have a tough game here, man. This something have to happen here. Have yourself a good day, sir.
Let me say this. Let me finish first with what I was saying to you about voting in prison. If you are incarcerated, if you are locked up, if you are jailed, if you are sentenced, that's what I'm looking for. If you are sentenced, in most countries around the world, let's deal perhaps in the US specifically. If you are sentenced in US, dependent on what you're sentenced for, you can be allowed to vote or not. If it is a felony, you get to vote, right? But only in some states. If you're not serving a felony and you're not convicted of a crime, you get to vote. If you're serving a crime for misdemeanor, sentence or misdemeanor, you get to vote. So if you're a felony prisoner, you don't get to vote in many instances. But if you're not convicted of a crime, that is, you're locked away, you're on remand, as we like to say, then you retain your right to vote. And if you're in jail for a misdemeanor, you retain the right to vote in the US. We like to take a lot of examples from the US. And so what the GCOM commissioners have been arguing for is that at least those persons who are on remand Those persons who have not been sentenced should be allowed to vote. And anybody like Claudette and the others who are seeking to deny those persons the right to vote are infringing on their human rights. And yes, contrary to what this scholar was saying, he believes it's later, it's the last minute. There's no last minute. And there's no late to hold government accountable and hold constitutional institutions accountable. But again, it comes down to the will of the citizens. It cannot be, and it will never be, about the leader of the opposition or members of the opposition alone. It has to be a national issue. It is the citizens who have to make this demand. Look at what's happening in the US right now on those protests. I call them the immigration protests. You think them citizens sat back and wait for any leader, this and leader that, to really and truly rile them up enough to get onto the streets? Or even if they were waiting, at the slightest show that something was going on, you see how many of them are in the streets? So much so that Trump went and he brought out the National Guard, and he was, I understand there might be plans to bring out the military. Guyanese have to be more willing to stand up for and defend the little that is left of this democracy, if any is left. We are pulled back from the cliff. And we can't do it just sitting and asking, what the opposition going to do? What will we do? Ask not what your opposition members of parliament and leaders can do for you, but what you could do for your country. It is 9 o'clock. It's time for me to go about my business. And so I bid you farewell. I wish you a terrific rest of the day. I remind you that there is Cash App. I remind you that there is Zelle. Okay, I see one voice note. I will be nice and kind, and I'll play that voice note before I leave.
Good morning, Mr. Amsterdam. Yeah, that caller, I don't think he understood your question. But I personally believe that the opposition should mobilize mass support and take them around GCOM, because you know they're going to put up the barriers. Take them around GCOM. You know, I think the time is right. The time is ripe to create a mass protest around GCOM at this time. People by the thousands, just like they came out for Adriana Young. Yeah, people by the thousands. Take them around GCOM and create a mass protest where the international communities they observe that Guyanese are not going to have it. This is my take on that.